I don't understand our government's response to coronavirus. For as long as I can remember, left-wing wet wipes have said that the Conservatives are bad because they hurt the poorest and most vulnerable in society and want to destroy the NHS. And that's why I voted for them. I thought it was a good idea. Then this virus comes along, slaying the obese, the morbidly ill, the elderly, and destroying the NHS. If you believe what you read in The Guardian, basically enacting Tory policy, and the Conservatives actually tried to stop it. This is very disappointing. When Boris finally goes, the next leader of the Tory Party should be coronavirus. Anyway, governments around the world used the pandemic as an excuse to introduce daft authoritarian rules to harass and persecute law-abiding citizens. Here are the 10 most ridiculous examples of government overreach and bullying that I found. Canada's leader, Justin Trudeau, referred to unvaccinated people as extremists who are racists and misogynists. He's talking in French in this clip just to emphasize how much of a ponce he is.
Des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère?
I mean, now we're taking judgments on racism from a man who's spent half of his life in blackface with a banana stuck down his pants. Here he is, appearing as Aladdin in Panto at Southend Pavilion. Trudeau is calling people who haven't been vaccinated racist, even though Statistics Canada, that's the body that deals with all the public data in Canada, says that the groups most likely to be vaccine resistant are ethnic minorities. Groups who have more reason than others to be wary of the government and of authoritarianism. What Trudeau says next is even more worrying. We have to make a choice. Do we tolerate these people? The language he's using is the language of genocide. It's left-wing populism. Just as right-wing demagogues in the 30s demonised immigrants or Jews and used hatred of them to whip up their voter base, Justin Trudeau is dehumanising anyone who's not had a particular medical intervention. During lockdown, picnics in the park were illegal because coronavirus can be transmitted through double dipping in hummus. The police in Hove, an English seaside town, stopped a woman who's breastfeeding her baby in the park because, according to them, it constituted a picnic. I'm not joking, a picnic. I mean, unless her breast milk was being expressed in the form of marinated mozzarella balls, it wasn't a picnic. I've been on loads of picnics and they've never involved just sucking the milk from a new mother's breast. There's always hummus and olives and prosecco, as well as that warm, forbidden mummy juice. The SNP have been arresting grannies. Scotland is beset with social problems. We've got spiralling drug deaths, plummeting life expectancy, a flatlining economy. Coronavirus just isn't much of a problem in Scotland. The average age of coronavirus victims in Scotland is actually older than the average life expectancy. That's nuts. That means that people are living longer in Scotland if they get coronavirus. Like in Scotland, coronavirus isn't a disease, it's an antioxidant. Like the Scottish diet is so bad you can actually introduce a bat virus into it and Scottish bodies just go, what is this? Is this fibre? The only fibre a Scottish person normally has in their diet is from accidentally eating some paper round a kebab. But yeah, it's not. Some people in Glasgow are making it into their 40s. It's never been seen before. I mean, you make it to 50 in Glasgow, you get a telegram from the Queen. I'm going to say it's the Queen, it's Susan Boyle, but same kind of thing. Despite this, at New Year, Scottish police arrested these pensioners for having a glass of sherry in a bar in Glasgow. I mean, thank God these scumbags were taken off the street. One of them was searched and found to have Werther's Originals with a street value of 60 pence. I mean, watching timid grannies being cuffed like they're carjackers is doubly unfair because the Scottish Government doesn't apply COVID rules fairly. Anytime there's a group of people breaching COVID rules in a way that's politically helpful for the Scottish Government, they're applauded. I mean, look at this tweet from Sturgeon praising this protest against her enemies, the UK government, even though the protest clearly breached lockdown rules. If COVID was such a problem, wouldn't people be condemned for breaching lockdown rules no matter what the political reason was behind it? This protest was to stop the UK Home Office deporting illegal immigrants, so people blocked the road and tried to get them out of the van successfully in the end. I was actually at this protest because it was just round the corner from my mum's, but I was protesting to get them back into the van. And the Scottish Government themselves broke the rules. The SNP's Ian Blackford travelled 600 miles on the day the country went into lockdown because he heard that Ben and Jerry's was giving out free samples at the train station. And Margaret Ferrier was suspended for taking an 800-mile round trip from Scotland to Westminster after a positive coronavirus test because she hates English people so much she wanted to infect them. Sturgeon likes to see herself as Scotland's mammy, protecting us for her own good. She's more like Joseph Fritzl, keeping us locked up. Next up, we've got social distancing hats for Chinese school children. Whoever came up with these social distancing hats needs to get right in the bin. Chinese school kids were made to wear hats with big sticks hanging off the side to stop them getting too close to each other. But it made them look like Springer Spaniels. Fortunately, not so convincingly that they're actually caged and sold at wet markets and eaten. Oh Leo, it's racist to say that Chinese people eat dogs. Man, dogs are eaten in China, and it's one of the more normal things they'd eat. I'd eat a Labrador. In Wuhan, they also eat pangolin and bats. That's why we're in this mess. But these crazy hats weren't the only social distancing measure used on school children. I mean, one of the worst things about lockdown was how unfairly it punished children for a disease that barely affects them compared to older people. And one of the worst things about coronavirus is that it barely affects children. They deserve to get coronavirus because they're annoying and they're too happy. Police also interrogated this grandma for the heinous crime of meeting her friends for a socially distanced cup of tea in the communal gardens of their sheltered housing. There's no way this was a crime, unless she didn't put the milk in first. But listen, this woman fought in a war to save us from speaking German. Or if she didn't fight in a war, she sucked off some American troops to thank them for saving us from speaking German. Either way, she deserves some thanks. Police were actually tipped off by someone. How depressing is that? Someone grassing up a couple of grannies having a cup of tea. I mean, in my day, grannies phoned the police on young people. Now the young people have turned the tables. Police also filled a beautiful lake with black dye. I'm not joking. Police saw that people were enjoying nice, socially distanced walks in the fresh air and decided to put a stop to it in case anyone improved their cardiovascular capacity or got some vitamin D. So they dyed the lake black so that nobody could enjoy it. I mean, why don't you just spoon our eyes out so we can't enjoy anything? This would make me more likely to walk up to it so I could see the insanity that my taxes are being spent on. This reminds me of at school when you'd spit in your own chips so nobody else would nick any. If you didn't do this at school, you went to a better school than me. According to Sky News, the pool also contains rubbish and dead animals and is very cold. Yeah, no wonder it contains dead animals. The police keep dumping barrels of Garnier Nutris Midnight Black in there. Government officials also gave completely unwanted lockdown sex advice to reduce the spread of COVID while maintaining the spread of chlamydia. According to the Canadian government, if you're feeling well and have no COVID symptoms, you're allowed to masturbate. Wow, thank you government for this state-sanctioned wank. However, if you do have COVID symptoms, no wanky-panky for you. You have to sit with blue balls in case you spread coronavirus from your dick to your belly button. If you want to actually have sex with a real person, they recommend using a glory hole to limit contact. If you don't know what a glory hole is, basically it's a hole in a bathroom wall that you stick your dick through, and it's exciting because it could be your sister or your dad, although it kind of takes the fun out of it being told to do it by the government. And how does it reduce the spread of coronavirus? You've got to leave the house, go to a public toilet, touch surfaces, stand in the queue for the glory hole, hope your partner reaches the end of her queue on the other side of the glory hole at the same time as you do. I mean, it might limit contact with your partner's body, but there's a lot more contact with strangers and dirty surfaces. The whole thing seems much more COVID-y than staying at home and having normal sex like a normal person. The government also told people to wear a mask and have sex from behind. Has anyone in government actually ever had sex? You don't just come up behind someone and dock like a space station. And wearing a mask, ooh, comply with regulations, baby. You know it drives me wild when you conform. Man, the only mask that should be worn in the bedroom is a gimp mask. COVID rules also forced people to have sex outdoors in freezing weather, like these lesbians. I mean, imagine the nipple chafing on the walk home. Police even fined people who were genuinely trying to help. A shopkeeper in North London was fined for drawing chalk lines on the ground to help her customers stay 2 meters apart so they stay safe and don't spread coronavirus. Anyway, she was fined for criminal damage, and the policeman doing it said,
"It's the law, it doesn't change just because of what's happening. Otherwise there'll be anarchy."
We need laws or there will be anarchy. Although when I think of anarchy, I don't think of shopkeepers trying to enforce COVID regulations. Also, the policeman wasn't 2 meters away. He should fine himself. He's the only one breaking the COVID rules in this situation. Next up, we've got whatever politician or supermarket manager decided it was a good idea to wrap up non-essential items in the supermarket so nobody could buy them. Because it really depends on what you deem to be an essential item. Tampons were banned as non-essential. I mean, as a man, I kind of agree with this, but what if I was a man who had a vagina? It's 2022, baby. I'd want something absorbent to stick in my chuff. Smoke alarms were also deemed to be non-essential. I mean, technically, I guess they're really only essential if you've got a fire in your house you're not aware of. We also have people getting harassed by drone or getting arrested because they went for a walk outside. I mean, if the government really wanted people to be healthier and protected against COVID, they'd tell them to eat a healthy diet and go outside in the fresh air and sunshine and get some exercise. Instead, they arrested anyone who did this. These women were arrested. I mean, they were obviously arrested just because they're fit. I'm not saying the police are lazy or lockdown rules gave them an excuse to avoid nasty criminals, but who would you rather have in your van? A deranged crackhead spitting at you, or two women who smell like cinnamon? Police also use drones to hassle these dog walkers, even though they're clearly socially distanced. The dog walkers should have said that they're not walking the dogs, they're marching the dogs for Black Lives Matter, and then it would have been fine for some reason I don't understand. A tactic rulers use to control the population is to whip up fear of COVID itself, and also fear of the authorities and their punishments if you breach lockdown rules. Fear is very powerful and causes people to comply and also denounce their neighbours, as I covered in my previous video about COVID bedwetters. Sociologist Patrick Bergman explains that fear-based denunciations are motivated by a perceived threat against individual or common safety. Traditionally, they've been targeted against a group, outsiders or immigrants, but in this case, people are afraid of a virus, so it's less clear-cut. In Nazi Germany, an estimated 42% of denunciations were false. Authorities debated changing the system, but they ultimately decided to keep it because it was great for keeping everyone in line. With democracy receding around the world and governments becoming more authoritarian, we should stay alert to any erosion of our rights and increase in state power. The pandemic was like steroids for governments. It gave them an excuse to rush through authoritarian legislation, hand themselves power and cream off hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money through dodgy contracts. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your mates. And if you want to support me making these videos, then consider becoming a Patreon. There's a link below so you can sign up and you get early access to videos and you get other perks. And it means I get money so I can buy sausages, and it starts from as little as £3, which is literally the price of a pack of sausages from Waitrose. So yeah, link below for that, and like and subscribe, and yeah, thanks for watching. I've been Leo Kersky. Bye, 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 bye.